Hi, welcome back. My name is Laura. Today is a different kind of video. I participated in DEWEY'S 24-hour readathon, so I filmed my day kind of vlog style, and yeah, so I'm going to share that with you right now. So it's currently 6:30 a.m. The readathon started at 6 a.m., so I have slept in a little bit, but I'm going to get started and just read in my bed for a while because I'm too tired to get up. The first thing that I'm going to start on is Requiem of a Rose King by Ayakano, and this is the title that is inspired by Richard III, so I'm going to start off with that. So it's 8:30 now, and I've just finished reading Requiem of a Rose King, volumes 1 through 3. I really enjoyed it. I'm really disappointed that there isn't more of this out yet. It's a little bit of a complicated plot, but I think that's attributed to the Richard III references, and yeah, I'm maybe kind of thinking that I won't be picking up Richard III next, just because I don't want to ruin the reading experience of this comic, but I am going to try and do something Shakespeare, so that probably will happen soon. Anyway, I've had a shower and I'm ready to go have some breakfast, and then I'm going to start in on whatever Shakespeare I choose. So it's 20 after 10. I haven't made very much progress in my reading. I ended up picking up As You Like It instead of Richard III because I thought Richard III would cause me to be, maybe to spoil a little bit, the Requiem of a Rose King manga. So I'm going to pick that one up a little bit later. Plus I have it on order and it didn't actually come in time, so I'll wait to read it then. So I'm reading As You Like It. I'm in the middle of Act 3 and there's 5 acts in this story, and I haven't actually read this since 1998, so it's been a long time. I do remember it quite well because I enjoyed it a lot when I read it the first time. So it's a quarter to 12 and I just finished reading As You Like It by William Shakespeare. Turns out it's quite short because about half of it is essays, and then this is a good one for students because there's a lot of notes, so it's, you know, the play is really quite short on those pages, so it was a pretty quick read. I still really enjoyed it, and there was some bits in it that I didn't remember, that there was a whole romance between Touchstone and Audrey. I don't even remember those characters, so that bit was kind of weird, but yeah, for the most part I remembered a lot about it, and I thought it was a lot of fun to read, so but that's it for Shakespeare for today, and I'm going to move on to comics next. But first I'm going to put together some lunch. I think we're going to do sandwiches, but then I'll probably pick up a comic. I don't know which one yet. Are you enjoying not reading?
Mm-hmm. It's my favorite part about the readathon, the not reading parts.
So it's now 1:45. We're just ending at the 7th hour, which is insane because this day is going way faster than I was expecting. I've only read 3 comics and 1 book, which seems like actually not that bad, but I thought I was a faster reader than this. I have been taking a little too many breaks. I'm a little distracted. So we finished lunch and I'm going to start my next title, and that is Not Love But Delicious Food Makes Me So Happy by Fumi Yoshinaga. I've never read this before, but since I just had delicious bagel sandwich, I thought this would be appropriate, so I'm going to pick this up next. I don't know what's going on. It's just about 2 o'clock and it took me about an hour to finish reading Not Love But Delicious Food Make Me So Happy by Fumi Yoshinaga. It's actually a surprisingly long read for how short it was. Essentially it's a story of, or essentially it's just a bunch of short stories of her going to actual restaurants in Japan, and it does have like addresses and directions on how to get to them, and going out to restaurants with her friends, sitting down and ordering pretty much everything that they can, eating everything, and then just saying how delicious it is. So it's sort of like the end in any cooking show where they try the food and then just talk about how delicious the food is. It's kind of funny. It's not particularly exciting and there isn't any plot to it. And it is semi-autobiographical in that the main character is actually named after Fumi Yoshinaga, so there's that. But that was an interesting read. I'm feeling a little bit sleepy, and I'm going to have to pick something that's a little more lively next. It's almost 3. I just finished reading this Pokemon title, Giratina and the Sky Warrior. I wouldn't say it's the greatest. It was kind of a cute story. Definitely more for kids. It really kind of... There's a little bit of conflict and it was resolved really easily. And the drawings were more cartoony than I would expect. Or even more cartoony, I think, than the cartoon. So, yeah, but I read it. It was alright. I think I got it for like $1 at a secondhand book sale, so I'm glad that is over with. But I might pick up Pokemon again in the future. So, I think it's about 3 o'clock, and we are definitely feeling the need for some caffeine. I haven't had any caffeine yet, so we're going to take a little trip to Starbucks, and then we will be back to read something else. I don't know what that else is. So it's 3:30 and we're back from Starbucks, so I'm going to drink my coffee because it's desperately needed, and I'm going to start reading Lord of the Flies, and I don't think I'm going to finish it, but I will probably go halfway before I start reading comics because I'm tired. Well, we just made it officially to the halfway point, so it's 6 p.m. 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
And it turns out we're not as fast of readers as we thought we were. Either that or something has happened and we're just... the time's going fast. So I'm currently on page 80 of Lord of the Flies, and I was kind of expecting to be a little bit further in this book. And where are you, Jenny?
I'm on page 166 of David Mitchell's backstory. So halfway. Right there.
Right there? Yes. So the reading continues and we're surprisingly awake, and I think we're going to pull out supper, so that will help a little bit. And hopefully this book will be finished soon so I can move on to something. So it's just 8 o'clock and I've made it halfway into Lord of the Flies and I'm taking a break from it. And I picked up Love for Dessert by Hannah Aoi, which is a terrible, horrible josei manga, which I will be giving 1 star. It's just poor art, poor stories, and absolutely no substance, so yeah, I didn't care for this, but it's not mine, it's my sister's, so haha, you have a crappy comic, and I don't. But yeah, so I read that, and I just was looking for something light to kind of break up the prose. I probably will read another comic before I get back into the book. But I wasn't expecting to finish Lord of the Flies today anyway, so I'm not sure how things are going to go. But yeah, that's where we are. So it's just about 9 o'clock and I just finished reading Sequence by Yo Sayanagi. And it's not a title I've ever read before, it's a Tokyo Pop thing, and I think it's been in our collection since it was released, so a few years. It's not a title I recommend. It comes to a surprisingly unconclusive ending, and it's really frustrating. But it's not good enough that you're like, oh, I want to read more, or I wish there was more. So I guess it's good that there's not more. The story is a little bit sort of vampire. It's a mystery, trying to figure out what kind of creature this character is. It's got elements in it that remind you of Yuzo Takada's 3x3 Eyes. And the character design is really like Keiko Yamada's Go-Go Heaven, I would say, if you've read either of those, which isn't that likely, but yeah, it's not particularly great. I probably will give it about a 2 star. I probably won't be reading this often, if ever. Yeah, so anyway, on to the next. So it's 10:30 and I've been sitting around for the last 30 minutes answering questions on Goodreads and staring into space. I've been doing that a lot. And I finished reading Frontier Line by Yoshihisa Tagami, who's the author of Grey. And I wasn't aware of this, but this is actually 6 short stories. And they're all like mecha-based stories, so machines and pretty standard stuff. Each of these stories surrounds a different character, and it involves a complete story, a complete history of that character, including flashbacks, and within, like, what, they got 20 pages each, and as well as having all new language for the vocabulary of this world and all of the machinery. Plus, it's a complicated war, and you don't even know why they're fighting, so it's actually maybe not the easiest thing to read, and this feels more like it's an accompaniment to a story, so maybe if you actually knew a story and then read these, that like it would make more sense, but on their own they don't make a lot of sense, and I'm not sure if it's the writing itself or if it was the translator that made some wrong judgments. I'm not sure how you can tell. And then this one is a little bit weird. It's a CPM manga, so it's a little bit older, and it's written on this really thin paper. It's almost like a magazine paper, but there's a lot of shadowing, so you can see through the pages when you're reading it, so it's a little bit distracting. But I will say that the art in it is quite nice. I don't know, can you see that? I can't see me, so. I don't know enough about this comic to kind of say anything about it. I don't know any of the backstory, but I think it needs a reread, not when I'm tired, and I need to look at it a little bit more closely the next time I read it. So still not as annoying as Love for Dessert or Sequence, but probably not the best comic to pick up for your first comic, or comic to read when you're starting to get drowsy. It is now 11 o'clock, and I have just finished King of Wolves by Bronson and Kentaro Miura, and this was a pretty good one. I really actually enjoyed it. It was really fast-paced, and it involves some time travel. It's quite brutal, and the story, I think actually the story was really well constructed. There's some interesting elements about history in it, and it involves basically Genghis Khan. So Bronson can really write a good story, and Kentaro Miura is really good at dynamic and brutal art, although I am not a big fan of his because sometimes he tends to forget how the human body is built, I guess, and it's not that he takes liberties, I think he just gets confused about where everything is placed. So sometimes I find his drawings, at least of humans, a little off-putting, but he can definitely draw chaos, and that's what this story is really all about. So this one I really enjoyed. I'll probably give it about 4 stars, so that's a good one. And I'm going to read another one right now, also Bronson and Kentaro Miura, called Japan, and I think it's about Yakuza or something, so I'm looking forward to it. So it's 10:40, and I just finished reading Japan by Bronson and Kentaro Miura, so the same authors as that last title. I really enjoyed this one, actually. I highly recommend it. It's got a lot of really interesting themes in it. It is quite brutal, kind of has a Mad Maxy feel, you know, or Fist of the North Star feel to it. It's sort of on the theme of humanity. And yeah, so it's really kind of interesting. There's lots of really interesting themes in it. The storytelling is really great, and I've said before that I'm a fan of Bronson, and I can keep saying that. He is not disappointing me ever. I've never been disappointed by his stories yet. So really enjoyed it. Fast-paced, a lot of interesting feels, quite brutal. The art is really good in this. I have no complaints. I think this is probably a 4 or 5 star read for me. And so after this I'm going to go back to books. Or not books, but I'm going to go back to prose, and I'm going to read Metamorphosis by Kafka, and I think this book is only teeny tiny. So the story itself is actually only this much in the entire book, so I think that I can knock it out. It's only 55 pages long, so I don't think that'll be too much, and it'll be nice to say that I've read at least 2 books. Or 2 works of fiction. None of those things work for my results. It'll be nice to say that I read something, not just comics. So yeah, so this is next. It's 12:30 now in the morning, and I got a whole 8 pages into this, even though it's only a 55 page. Just reading it is making my eyes close. I've got very heavy eyelids, so I want to encourage my eyes to stay open, so I think I'm going to have to put this off for another day. Not that it's a hard read or anything, it's just a little too dry for right now. And so then I picked up The One I Love, which is a collection of short stories by Clamp. And in between each short story, like very, very short story, they have a 2-page essay about what the short story is about. So it's kind of interesting because it just talks about some of their personal stories, and so it's kind of interesting. Also a little bit dry, and since the short stories themselves, the drawings are so short, it's also not a very good one for when you're tired. So now I'm going to look for some things that are maybe a little bit more exciting or faster paced, and that is what I'm going to read probably for the rest of the night. I don't think I can do any more of these single volume titles. Why are you snorting?
Because you're so tired. You didn't get through very many of your single volumes.
I got through a couple. Okay, I didn't get through very many.
I know, it's funny.
I can't read any of the big chunky ones because they're too serious.
Oh no.
That one's too serious. That's the one I want to read next. I'm going to read some of these less serious ones, but I think I'm going to be into series really soon here. But there's only 5.5 hours to go, so so it's 1 a.m. I have decided that it's time to move into series, so I have pulled Skip Beat out of a comic book room, and I'm going to try and read as much of this as I can, and this might be all I read for the rest of the night. Not just volume 1. I have 10 volumes here, and if I finish them, I'll either keep going or pick something else, so yeah. So I may not talk to you again. Hi, so I'm back now, and it's 10:30 a.m. on Sunday the 24th, so the readathon is officially over. I only made it until about 2:33 and then went to bed, and my sister also we were just too tired. You know, I was at the point where I was turning pages, but I wasn't blinking anymore, so I would just turn pages with my eyes closed. That doesn't help, doesn't work. So yeah, I got pretty tired, and but I think I did pretty well. I read a bunch of books. It wasn't all the books that I wanted to read, and it definitely wasn't titles that I was expecting I was going to choose to read, because I was hoping to read some of the thicker volumes of manga, and you know, I ended up choosing a different Shakespeare to read, and I didn't end up reading the Metamorphosis at all. So like there's definitely differences in my reading, and I did expect that I was going to read more than I did, because I'm a fast reader, and like I was just surprised at how fast time was going in relation to my reading. Like, I'm not normally this slow, and maybe it's because I was pushing myself, but also maybe because I was taking long breaks every hour, which probably was a bad idea, but I just needed to take breaks. So you know, after the end of the night, or after I left you in that last clip, I only ended up reading volume 1 and volume 2 of Skip Beat before it was just, I was done, I was out. So yeah, so I ended up reading those. I read 8 pages from the Metamorphosis, so I did touch it. You know, it's only 55 pages, so that's like almost, I don't know, a sixth, a fifth. Yeah, you can't really count that. I read half of Lord of the Flies, and or more than half, actually, a little more than half, and I'm interested to keep reading it, so like it was a good experience to read. It was a little bit slow, and I think it probably picks up in the end, because, you know, the whole thing with Piggy, but I haven't read that bit yet, so I don't really know how it all goes. I did read all of Shakespeare's As You Like It, and I actually enjoyed it quite a lot. And then, I guess going backwards, I read The One I Love by Clamp, I read Japan by Bronson and Kentaro Miura, and King of Wolves by Bronson and Kentaro Miura. I actually really enjoyed those 2 titles. Frontierline by Yoshihisa Tagami, Sequence by Ryo Sayanagi, Love for Dessert by Hana Aoi, and I won't be reading that again. Pokemon's Giratina and the Sky Warrior by Makoto Hijioka. Not Love But Delicious Food, Make Me So Happy by Fumi Yoshinaga. This one was Pretty interesting, but a little bit dry. And so then the first thing that I ended up starting off with, which was Requiem of Rose King. I have 1, 2, and 3. So that's everything that I read for the readathon. I hope you enjoyed my video. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed sitting there and reading all day, and yeah, it was kind of an interesting mix and definitely eye-opening, some of these titles. So yeah, I'm happy with at least what I got to read. So I guess that's it for my video. Hopefully it's not majorly long, but if it is, thanks for, sticking with it to the end, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!